right. What's your favorite animated movie?
Ooh, Spider-Verse.
Into the Spider-Verse?
Oh, hell yeah. Such a good
Why?
film. Oh, just recently on TikTok, there has been so many like videos like pinpointing like all the little minute details that you might have missed, and it's so to the point of it. Like there's so many details that they add in that you wouldn't even notice, but once you do, it just makes it so much better. It's such a good film. Wow, such a good question. Damn, well done.
That was a really good question.
Yeah, and I picked that one. You're welcome, Jared.
Good job.
All right. What about you, Jared?
Brave.
Brave.
You know that one about the Scottish lady with the bow?
I love that movie.
I love that movie.
I just watched it like 3 days ago for like the 1,000th time. I just can't not watch it.
No, it's brilliant. I do watch it myself, so like I love when I got to see it in that, and then because it's about like I guess Scottish history, culture, blah blah blah. Being from Ireland, it's very similar, so it was fun to watch.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I love both of those movies. Those are actually good picks. Good choice, Thomas. Good choice.
Thank you.
Man, Thomas.
Yeah. Thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Take a Space Podcast. I am your host, Leah. I am joined today by the lads at Awfully Irish, Gerard and Thomas. Thank you so much for being here.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.
Why don't you introduce yourself, tell the people a little bit about your podcast.
Thomas, go ahead.
Oh no, Jared, please, I insist.
No, please, after you.
No, I wouldn't. I'm a gentleman, please.
No, ladies first, man, please.
As God is my witness, age before beauty.
Okay. Yeah, like I'm Gerard from the AwfullyIrish podcast. We did 140 episodes in a row, like day by day. We didn't skip a beat at the start of the pandemic, and until recently we didn't realize that was insane, and we're cut down to 3. We started off with 3 hosts. We ended up narrowing down to 2. Not out of anything bad, just because myself and Thomas do media, and the other guy wanted to study marine biology, so it wasn't beneficial for the path he was going on. But yeah, we interview people from all across the world. So we talk to comedians, actors, athletes, doctors, dietitians. Fairly recently, we talk to everyone.
Stoners.
Yeah, we have some amazing guests, and many of which you would have heard of. So yeah.
And I'm Thomas.
That is wild. So I was looking at your catalog, listening to some of your episodes, and I was trying to figure out, I was like, how many episodes are they putting out per week? This is at what point do you have time to live? Like that's a lot of content in just a few short months. That is, I mean, good grief. At what point were you all shut down, or did you guys ever go into lockdown?
Oh, we're still in lockdown.
Oh, you're still in lockdown.
We went to lockdown. The first lockdown we went into was March. Me and Gerard were still in school at the time. We were still in the equivalent of high school over there. We were about to sit our exams. Our exams got cancelled very last second. I say very last second. No, yeah, very last second. They kept postponing them. Like, I think we were the year that was going to do the Leaving Cert for the longest. Whereas other years, they just do it in... when is it, July that the Leaving Cert's done? June, July, yes. And then we were planning to sit ours in October, but then they cancelled it. Too many people complained. Too many people got under the skin of the government, and that was cancelled. And then, as it was cancelled, me and Gerard thought it'd be really funny. Me, Gerard, and Dara. Big shout out to Dara. We love you, sir. Kind of sat down. We were good friends. We played a lot of Warzone during lockdown together. A lot of online games, and we had all been in the same school as each other. I sat beside Gerard in Irish, and then me and Dara, we go back years. We kind of just said, wouldn't it kind of be fun just to talk to, just to start a podcast, see where it goes with it, And then first couple of episodes, we didn't really know what to do, and then we just kind of found our groove. Thought interviewing people, famous people, whatever. Thought it'd be fun, and Gerard came up with this really good idea that it could be daily, and the 3 months we spent doing it daily still haunt me every day.
It was actually more like 5 months.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
I said it was terrible. It was
That's
fun.
so many
It gave me
days.
something.
It was the
Oh
best
gosh.
5 months ever. I learned
It gave us
so
something to
much.
do during the lockdown. We were talking to our friends every day. Gave us a reason to get out of bed. It was just.
Yeah.
It was good. It was good.
So your
Don't regret
initial
it.
lockdown was like 5 months, and then what happened after that? Did you guys ever finish?
Yeah,
Did
we
you
finished.
guys have to go to like virtual school?
All
So,
virtual.
um, what happened? So first lockdown ended for summer, so we were out of it. We were in level 1, so it's like a level 2. So we're in level 5 right now, which is like no shops, no barbers. Well, I say shops, no non-essential shops, no barbers, no anything open. Level 1, barbers were open. You could go see your friends. You could go if you were social distancing. You were wearing a mask. It was all good. A couple of like Jared came over once or twice. We watched fights because that's what we do.
Yeah, big
It's,
UFC
it's
fans.
entertaining. It's well, yeah, it's entertaining. And then went back into it for October. Came out for it for 2 weeks during Christmas, and we're stuck in a lockdown since Christmas Eve or Christmas
And
Day, one of them.
Valentine's
And
had to be
we have
spent
not
alone.
left. And it was spent alone for me, and all us other.
Yeah, it's hard times here. But to talking to other people, we get to live vicariously through them. Hearing their stories, and us sharing with other people. So yeah.
So now, how many episodes are you all putting out a week?
3.
It's
We do
complicated.
three
It's
three
complicated.
episodes, and then we do 2 live streams. So also because we already played video games with each other, we just thought wouldn't it be fun if we could like live stream, people might like it, and they did. So we live streamed COD. We did a lot of cool games, and then we kind of took a step back from live streaming, more focused on making episodes. But then, so every Tuesday we have a virtual pub talk, which is the one you were at the other day. You popped in, you said hello to us, which is
Yeah.
where me and Jared sit down. We invite our friends in, just have a laugh, a chat, whatever.
Pub
And
talk.
then every Saturday Jared has a solo show where he interviews comedians, he interviews friends.
Yeah,
Big
at the
shout out
moment,
Red,
I'm
Paul
trying to
Roseberry.
sort it out. We have this kind of thing going on every Saturday. One of us will do a show. Thomas, fair play to him. He's going to do a fundraiser this Saturday coming. I did
Oh, nice.
my own show last Saturday with Paul Roseberry. Shout out to him, great comedian.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm doing a charity stream on Saturday. I'm going to be playing zombies for 8 hours. So donate. I will leave. I usually say I'd leave a link, but this isn't my channel. So
There you
don't
go.
follow me. No.
No, if you share it, we'll put it on our stories. Like, absolutely, it's a support. So one of the things that you guys wanted to talk about today was the influence of culture, of U.S. culture in Ireland. And I think that sometimes in the United States, we kind of get bogged down with the differences in different cultures because we've gone from just an array of different cultures to trying to be a melting pot, because there is a form of assimilation that is deemed appropriate in order to be successful in the United States. But I think that with with social media being a huge push, especially here, we get to see how important the differences of different cultures are. Do you all see the influence of the United States, or how much influence does the United States have in Ireland?
Bigger than you'd think. I mean, all our social media that we use over here in Ireland is American made. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Like, there's no Irish social media app, and if there is one, it is not as big as all the ones you guys have. So, that's number one. All our social media is American culture. So it's all Then you think of films, TV show. I'm a huge fan of Star Wars, Marvel. Do you know what I mean? All made in
Hmm.
America. You can just see how big, like, my heroes, guys from over in the US, like, it's
Yeah.
mad how small that Irish culture has over Ireland, because America has just, it's kind of swept the floor with us. It's mad.
Yeah. Like another thing, I remember I said to you earlier, Leah. Like I know people who aren't on speaking terms anymore because of the U.S. election recently, and that's amazing to me
Yeah.
because we've nothing to do with the states. So like, I'll say it right now, guys. Biden's not my president. I'm Irish.
Right.
You know,
Right.
it's just like it's amazing that people just couldn't see past like that. It's just the states. Like literally, no matter who wins, Leah, you could have won. It would make no difference to us.
The
I
only
think
president I'll be claiming is Miggledy Higgledy. What a mad, what a lad.
I
Yeah,
think that it's interesting that the whole issue of are you for Trump, are you from Biden, or which one are you for, or which way do you lean? They turn that from voting for a specific person to tying it to what your beliefs are, and if you can support this person, then I can no longer have a relationship with you. And I think that's interesting that it not only, oh gosh, ruined relationships here in the US, but in Ireland?
amazing.
Yeah, it's mad.
So,
That doesn't even happen with our own government. Someone who likes Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael, like this, they don't care. They actually do not care. If you like Sinn Féin or even the National Party, no, maybe the National Party's a bit bad, but
Yeah, man.
people really don't care. They really don't care. But when it came to the states, it was there were people like I don't know, like sharing a bunch of posts for Biden to win and stuff. Like, so what? Like your 200 Irish followers might check that out. Like,
But we
they're
were
not
also
gonna
saying, Jared,
vote.
how weird it was at the time that there's only two big parties. Like over here in Ireland, we have like three or four, maybe even more. Like we have a couple, but do you know what I
What
mean? Then you have
wasn't last
independent
year the
stuff.
first time that a third party ever won
in
As in the
in
Green
Ireland?
Party. Yeah, the Green
No,
Party, right?
no.
What, Fianna Fáil?
Sinn Féin. Remember?
Well,
It was Fianna
they
Fáil,
won,
Fine
but they
Gael,
didn't.
and then Sinn Féin was the first ever
Yeah, they
beat that
won
loop.
in majority vote, but like they didn't win. They're not in government,
Uh,
sadly.
they didn't
We
know. They
won
didn't have enough
sometime, but
people, didn't they?
no.
But anyway,
It's
yeah,
weird how our thing
binary
worked.
system's weird. Civil war politics
Yeah.
is quite weird.
yeah,
Mm.
it's this whole two-party system people have been trying to get rid of. They've been trying to get rid of the electoral college for some time because of issues in counting people's votes, and not just counting people's votes, but there's like voter suppression. There's a lot that goes on, especially with the US. And it's interesting that you bring in social media because I think that's something that we don't necessarily really think about. If there are American made social media platforms, then of course, like America is going to have a greater influence.
Mm.
Just like TikTok was made in China. What was TikTok made?
China.
Yeah,
China.
China.
Yes, TikTok being made in China, it's going to have that influence, and I think that having and then there's a couple of other social media platforms like Clubhouse and that where a lot of people don't necessarily have access, but if it's made in a certain country, that country is going to have influence, especially going into other countries. Do you think that it's more of a positive or negative influence? Do you feel like you're
Positive.
losing your culture, or
Positive,
is
absolutely. Gone
Oh,
doubt,
our culture is
absolutely.
so minuscule. The
what
only
do you mean?
thing that really brings up our culture now is, I would say, is the fla, which is like a music kind of
Or the
festival
language.
where the language, yeah, but like the language is dying out there. They're trying to, in all fairness, man, I love the Irish language, but it's not. They were thinking about taking it off our syllabus, like learning the Irish language.
That's dying.
By the
What
look
is
of your
that?
face,
Is
you probably
it
didn't even know
Gaelic?
that. Yeah, yeah. Well,
Well, there's
Okay.
Scottish Gaelic and then there's Irish Gaelic.
it's Irish
Oh,
Gaelic,
okay.
yeah.
It's called
But like
Gaeilge.
very little people actually know. You study Irish for 14 years over here, and people can barely like form sentence together. I'm allowed to swear. Oh God, sorry if I'm not allowed to swear.
It's okay. I'll bleep it out. It's fine.
Are you sure? Oh,
Yes.
I can't wait to watch this. I've never seen myself being bleeped.
Stop.
Yeah.
No, sorry. I'm causing extra work for you.
Yeah.
My apologies. I'm a child, as you can see. But no, people can't form a sentence together in Irish. It's crazy how badly it's taught. But I presume if they actually taught it a bit better, that people would.
What do you like? So
Céim fá gur ceapan tú sin Hamas. Céim fá.
Malone, Lechris, you know what I mean, man.
Ispíní gur of Mahagas.
Yeah.
Speaking of
No
Irish
problem,
there.
man.
But
just for context, we said stuff like lunch and sausages in that sentence.
yeah,
we
we
weren't
said
talking.
random words. I asked him why
So,
does he think
like,
that, and he answered with sausage.
You know, just a bit of fun. But
But yeah, look, the Irish language is kind of dying. Like for a long time, and I've nothing against English people. It's just that they were here for a long time, and for a long period of their history being here, they suppressed Irish culture to a point of near extinction with the Irish language, and rough times were had here. The famine. We were starving to death, and they didn't really care.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. But yeah, that was back in the day, but it obviously still has long-lasting effects.
I mean, yeah. Because even though, like, and this is the interesting part, is that a lot of and I see the mirroring happening with a lot of Irish culture. Like, there are some pockets that I've seen people try to bring back to life with the language, with the festivals, and it's very similar to, not exactly the same, but it's very similar to the Black experience in America, because we don't have that direct connection to our culture with whatever country we were brought here from, during the slave trade, and we've been pretty much told that we have to assimilate to certain culture in order to be successful, and should we fail to do that, then we will pretty much live in poverty, die out, won't be able to achieve any sort of, happiness or anything. Do you feel, as the younger generation, that it is your duty to keep that part of your life alive and continuing that, and continuing your culture, or are you willing to just take on whatever you have on hand as your new culture?
Oh, I hope they never let the Irish language die out. I'll be really sad if they stop putting it on the syllabus as badly as it is taught.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I really hope they continue to push that. And even during Irish class, we learned Irish dancing. I was taught how to play the tin whistle when I was younger. They used to do that, and like, I think they still do it in primary schools. You come in a day, they bring in your tin whistle, you learn the national anthem. Like, it's cool. It's nice. I hope they continue to teach it to kids in school, because, like, I think I still have a tin whistle here. Like, I can still play it on my, like, it's fun. It's cool. I would not, but I would probably definitely.
Yeah, but yeah, as long as I'm living, I'll be bringing Irish along with me. It's different when you know your culture. Like, that's a big difference with, I guess, the Black experience in America versus the Irish experience. Like, I know, I can trace all this stuff back, but I guess in your situation, as weird as, like, you wouldn't know where to track your ancestry from, would you? Like,
I can probably go back for 5 generations. I can probably go back 5 generations, but like anything before that, it kind of gets a little dicey.
Which is awful. Like, it's awful not knowing where you're from.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's horrible.
Because then you go to school and you're taught that, well, we just fell from the sky as slaves, and we are forced into this servitude because that's what the purpose of our lives are, is to be of service, and that's essentially it. Until you learn about the empires, you learn about why the slave trade occurred and the purpose of everything happening and where we were even before that. And that wasn't even until college that you learn any of that. but in high, if you only go to high school and you don't read any other books or talk to any of your elders, that's essentially what you know, is that, you know, your people just fell from the sky as slaves and you're here to be of service, and not that, you know, you're creative
College.
and you have,
That's
yeah, exactly,
I remember
exactly.
learning that. I remember learning that. We learned about the slave trade back in primary school, which is like
No,
we were in
they'll
fifth or
teach you
sixth
slave
class. I'm like
trade.
11.
We didn't do that at my
Yeah.
place.
Well, like I don't know, it's probably different. No, we learned a lot of stuff. We did a lot of stuff in primary school that was deep. We did MLK, like we did
We did
JFK.
that. Yeah.
We did a lot of stuff.
I'm
But
glad
like
we did
again and
I'm glad
again,
we
it's
did that
all a
stuff
lot of it is
very early
American,
on.
which is really weird. Again, you know, like a lot of our history that we learned during when we're young is American. It's mad.
That's interesting. Yeah, I only learned about you all's culture probably in college. It was probably in college because even in world history, the only thing that I can remember that we learned was potatoes, famine, looking for work, and being treated as less than. That's all I know about, like, coming out of high school. But like in college, we got to have a more holistic worldview of what other countries were going through and the impact of imperialism.
Mm.
Fucking potatoes. I hate
Yeah.
it. We have a friend named Red. Whenever he sees me, he just immediately brings up the famine and potatoes. He's such a dick. I hate him.
But like,
Love you, Red.
it's not offensive.
No, it's
Like,
not offensive at all. It's,
we're a
it's
bit
just
past
it's
that.
a look at you, Thomas. You're Irish potatoes. Yeah, yeah.
And he's
I
Scottish
know
as
you're watching
well,
this.
so
Ah, okay.
just shout haggis at him.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
but yeah, look, we had a dodgy time over here, but I'd be very right in saying that you had it a bit worse.
Yeah, I mean, I can appreciate that, you know, other people were that, of like what the times were and what the impacts were, and not feel that we have to compare hurts, because we're still trying to get to the point of equity, right? It's like we're not even seen as, and of course everybody kind of like stood at a standstill, which I thought was just like a beautiful moment of the world just coming together, after we saw George Floyd getting murdered last year, and we get to see like the systemic and systematic, you know, genocide that happens, especially here, and how other people of African descent in other countries are treated. You know what I mean? And so it's just interesting that sometimes, for the sake of not wanting to be offensive, people are not necessarily willing to speak up. And while, you know, there's this saying of like, smile, you're white, like you're fine, there's still some hurts and some things that you have to overcome. Even though, yeah, you are white, you have a culture that's essentially dying out, and the new wave is to be immersed in American culture. So it's like you trying to make sure that you keep your culture alive. And there are some villages, some people who died out. There's a community of, I want to say 200 people. I think it's less than 200 people in South America where their languages are dying out because less than 200 people know how to speak it.
Yeah,
It's horrible.
look, it's horrible. And
No, it is.
well, the last lingual Irish speaker died like what 50 years ago, maybe 60. Like the
I
last
think
guy
so.
who only knew how to speak Irish, like his whole community was only Irish speaking. He
Mhm.
died off fairly recently, or
Mm.
50 years recently, you know. But
Really?
languages dying is rough. Like they're dying constantly. But I I don't know. Like you have to speak it to keep it alive. But
Yeah.
realistically, the language of business, which is even we're speaking here, you know, like two Irish guys and you being from the States, we're obviously talking in English, and you know neither of us are from England. But you know it's just the business
Yeah.
language. And if you
Right.
want to be successful in I guess this modern day, you want to be either speaking French, German, or English.
So that kind of goes to the point of assimilation, and that's why I want to ask if you have that in your culture. So, with a lot of everybody being on social media, and a lot of the social media coming from the US? Do you feel that there's a sense of assimilation, whether it be to the English when they occupied a lot of your space and still do in some areas, but with it being more Americanized, especially on when you are, presenting yourself to an audience on social media, and a lot of your audience could be from America. Do you feel that there's a sense of assimilation that you have to live up to?
I don't feel the same pressure as like I said others might feel, because they are coming to see two Irish lads chat garbage with someone. Like the Irish accent does help.
Yeah.
But look, I love American culture. I love American people. Like I've been there a number of times. I love the place. But that's just my experience with it. No pressure to assimilate really. Like look, I live in Ireland. It's like thousands of miles away. We're pretty a-okay here. Like we're not going to be stormed by the U.S. military or something if we don't have a transatlantic accent or something. But no, it's grand. Even with the English stuff, there still is a bit of hatred for the English in Ireland. Like naturally enough, the Good Friday Agreement only ended like in the last 30 years, or only started in the last 30 years. Like there's people who still want the North to be back in Ireland, but I mean it's up to people who live there, absolutely, and without a doubt.
Because the northern part of Ireland is still occupied by the English, is it not?
Some would feel it's not occupied. Some feel it's just where they live and it's part of the UK. But it depends on your perspective. I used to be really hardcore into, it should be ours, but I've grown up a little bit. Like, you don't earn it or something. It's just like if the people living there want to stay as part of the UK, what say I living in, the middle of Ireland? It doesn't make a difference to me really. If they consider the UK to be their home, absolutely, power to them.
Okay. Well, actually, Thomas.
No, yeah, I'm agreeing with Gerard. If say Tyrone or Armagh wanted to come back to Ireland, let them at it, But if they're happy where they are, which they must be, like, I have no what say do I, me living in the Midlands, like.
Yeah.
Do you feel any pressures to assimilate, especially being on social media or trying to attract an audience?
Yeah. I'm not really sure what that means. I'll be honest with you. I'm kind of assimilating.
Okay, so to assimilate means to essentially take on the main culture. So, for instance, assimilation in corporate America. There's this thing that Black people do to assimilate. So we may straighten our hair. We may speak with a different diction or dialect. We may our body language is going to be different. We'll dress very differently to be a part of the culture, because in corporate America, you have suits and white men with straight or short hair. You have women who are very modestly dressed with low heels or sometimes high heels, but very like pencil skirts and business suits and things like that. And in like my hair, I have locks. They're not really considered corporate America friendly. There's been lawsuits over it because people have been fired or not given a job because of their hair or because of the way they talk. Like, for instance, there's this thing called code switching, and I haven't done my interview voice in a long time, recorded. So hold on. Let me see if I can get into it. Hi, thank you for calling. My name is Leah. How can I help you? That's the way I would talk if I were in corporate America. And it's just like, it's that kind of switch that happens.
No, I wouldn't, because I may, for you maybe, I maybe sound funny, but this is how I speak all the time. Like, and I probably don't have the harshest of Irish accents, but probably a bit stronger than Gerard's, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean,
it really depends. Like, if you're getting a bit angry, like it does come out.
Oh yeah, if I'm angry, it'll come out and I'll start.
We've an episode coming out Wednesday, and you'll notice
angry Irish slurs. But like, to be honest, it's like no. No, I don't. I guess people might come and they might think. Sometimes we get comments like, "You guys are Irish. I love that," and that's cool because yeah, we are. But to be honest, it doesn't really make a difference.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of do me, and me is me. So yeah,
Yeah. And if you don't like it, you don't have to watch it. That's totally
no, you
cool.
don't have to
That's
watch us. That's
true.
the only thing.
That's true.
Now we'd recommend it highly, but then we do apologize. Sorry in advance.
Yeah. No,
I
yeah,
wouldn't
I
watch it.
apologize. But yeah,
No,
like
yeah,
I
don't
like the
try.
way corporate America is changing now. Like
Yes.
absolutely. You know, like does it really even have to be like as corporate as they make it out to be? Like you see people who work it from home who would make more than people in these high end jobs,
Yeah,
or they like, especially nowadays with working at home, like, and you get to see like people. I guess I don't know what you call them. I don't know what you call them to be right. Like you know, like the reggae kind of locks. What do you call those?
Dreadlocks.
Dreadlocks. Yeah, you get to see
Okay.
like lads in suits with those, and they look super cool. Or you
Yeah.
know, even on the white side, you know, like lads with like blonde long hair, looking all Nordic and Viking like in suits. Like a suit is what you make it, but if you don't want to wear it, you shouldn't be made to. If I want to show up to work in a hoodie and sweatpants, it's not. It's obviously it's not the best attire for a corporate job, but I don't see why it makes a big difference.
A lot of America is about the pageantry. If you think about like award ceremonies or weddings or any event, it's a lot about pageantry,
Mm.
and that has translated into like day to day life. So when you go to work, it's about the pageantry, and that's why there's like this micro aggressions of passive aggressive emails, and because you want to be nice but you want to be nasty nice. So
But
I'm going
like,
to tell you that you don't know what you're doing, but I'm going to tell you in a very corporate friendly way that hey, maybe we should circle back to this once you have time to actually read the email that I sent you 3 days ago, and I'll attach it here just in case you missed it.
mm.
mm,
But I guess that like stems from all over the world. Like even if you want to look at non-European examples, like the Ottomans back in the day, they dress as fancy as they could to make like appearances. Even if you go to ancient China, like they were wearing like the finest of silks and so on.
Yeah.
I guess it's just in culture around the world. You want to look your best, and it helps show authority if you're in a I don't know if you're in a job that requires it. You know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think
it does
that
depend.
the pageantry of it is, we're kind of getting away of that, and people are able to own who they are and present their authentic self, so
Mm.
that we don't have to diminish who we are. Like a lot of my blackness, I have to put away, or had to previously at other jobs put away in order to be seen as successful in those other jobs. So I used to wear my hair straight. I used to make sure that, if I had braids, that I would take them out before I would show up to work or whatever the case may be. But now I think that with it's even before the work from home thing started, it was more so a push for elevating black voices and other people of color, so that we don't feel like, okay, we have to assimilate so that we can get along and have some semblance of success in America. We can actually, be who we are authentically. And yes, there's still issues. There's, you know um the school to prison pipeline. We have housing issues where we can't get, like, I think it's the number is like 44% of black Americans own homes opposed to 74% of white Americans, but they don't see the disparity or why we can't achieve that. The average earning for a black couple is about 50% of that of a white couple. It's crazy. And so in that, there's a, well, I need to stand up and say something, stand up and make my voice heard, so that I can hopefully break through some glass ceilings, so that the next generation coming up doesn't have to fight the same fight we've been fighting for the last 60 years.
And what do you attribute that to?
What do you mean? Which part?
Because like I guess maybe give me benefit of the doubt. Like when I talk to most people, like no matter what color their skin is or their background, we all seem to get along. I'd like to think employers are the same.
Yeah.
Why do you think that like Black Americans have a rougher time?
Okay, so it's not necessarily you and I getting along, right? It's not if you were American, it's not the two of us getting along. There are systems that have been put in place that prevent me from being as successful as you would be. Because
Even in the
uh
workplace.
hmm?
Even in the workplace.
Even
Like
in the workplace. So I talk about this quite a lot with among my peers, and as a black woman, I can exhibit the same traits as a white man. I can be assertive. I can be um, unyielding but willing to compromise on the smallest of details. I can be a self-starter. I can be bold and all these things that will be seen as great attributes on a white man, but as a black woman, it turns into a negative thing where I'm aggressive, I'm harsh, I'm too direct, I'm
or
all
the
these
bossy
things.
thing people say. That's
Exactly.
strange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so because of those things, it holds me back a lot of times.
Hmm.
And not just me, but other women. And while we do have uh we are able to be a little bit more successful now, but before, it was just like, and a lot of the work that we get is kind of cleanup. There's an article called The Black Cinderella where we're told to be strong black women. We're told to be, oh, don't worry about it. Like, I'll be the one to stand up for everybody. I'll clean up the mess that everybody makes and all these things. And a lot of black women experience
Like
that.
physically or like
Like,
conversationally.
um,
Like I'm
in,
not sure. Are
in
you talking about the workplace? Or are you
in
talking
the
about like in
workplace,
friends? Okay.
not like, oh, somebody made a mess in the kitchen, I'm going to clean it up, but no,
Yeah.
somebody messed up on an account and I'm going to do my best to try to save it.
Okay.
Or there's a new policy that's being enacted. People will look to the black woman to speak up in that moment to say, hey, this isn't going to work for everybody. And so that has been something that has happened regularly because we do speak up for ourselves. So they want us to speak up for them as well. So I think that with a lot of the issues, not just in corporate America, but also in home buying. And I'll say it like this. Let's break it down to cars. Not even 30 years ago, there were people who were coming forward who used to work in lending. So whether it's auto lending, home lending, etc., where they would say that the company would ask whether or not this person is white, black, Asian, and there was another one, Asian Pacific Islander. There's another one because being Hispanic was only under white at that point. So if
That's
you
one that
were,
confuses me as a European.
yeah, it's I Dominican. A lot of Dominican people recognize themselves as white of Hispanic descent. So even though they look like me, that's how they identify because of the way it was listed, right? So during that time, if you were black, you would have to have a higher credit score in order to get a decent loan. So the amount of interest on our loans are a lot higher, and it's been said, because it's been proven, it's better to be a poor white family than a middle class black family because you have more access to resources in America. So it's not the conversations that we have between each other that say, oh, racism is not a thing, but it's the systems that have been put in place that prevent us from buying outside our neighborhood, because if we live in a certain zip code, we cannot then purchase in different zip codes. Like, banks just won't approve a loan for other zip codes because that's more of a white neighborhood and we don't approve anybody black to go there. There have been recent news spotlights where I just saw a family from my home state, black family, was looking to upgraded their house, put $400,000 in upgrades into their home. They originally bought it at 900,000. Okay, they did the upgrades, and they said that they had a person come out and saw that it was a black family, did the inspection, and said that the house is appraised at 1 million. That's only $100,000 more than the upgrades that they put in, right? Than the house was before they put in the upgrades. They changed the pictures in the house to be white people, and they had a friend pose as the woman, who is a white lady. And when the appraiser came back, the appraiser appraised it at $500,000 more than what it was.
Fucking hell.
So those kinds of things are the reason why we still have. It's not because I can make friends with y'all all day, right? But if you get to live like having to only pay 3% on interest of a loan that you took out, but I'm paying 13%, then it doesn't matter how much money we make. Like, I'm going to make less because as a black woman, I don't necessarily make as much as white men do, right? On average. So there's always going to be an issue there. And the issue is not necessarily with you, but it's with the systems that have been put in place that prevent us from being as successful as our counterparts.
I can't believe that story about the house. That's
the
That
thing
sounds
is,
like a racist
it's not a
conclusion.
unique story. It has been redlining. If you ever get a chance to look that up, redlining has been happening since houses were a thing. When the Great Migration happened, after the Civil War, and I'm getting my history mixed up. I want to say after the Civil War. So after the Civil War, a bunch of, like, the Emancipation Proclamation stated that if the enslaved Africans of the South chose to fight for the Union, they would get their freedom, right? That's what the Emancipation Proclamation did. Any enslaved persons in the South who wanted to fight for the Union in the North got their freedom. Not that they had freed slaves in the North, but it freed everybody in the South who wanted to fight. Once the war was over and the Union won, the enslaved persons of the South started moving north and west. And so that was the Great Migration, because if you look at the history, enslaved persons
is this a
were...
good thing or a bad thing? I'm not sure.
The Great Migration?
Yeah, I'm not sure what angle you're going at here.
Oh, okay. So,
like, it sounds like a good thing. Like, get out of the race.
So a lot of them are able to get out of the South because they're not. They're going to go look for their family or look for better life because they were previously enslaved. But a lot of them stayed because they didn't know anything else. So they worked for like pennies on the dollar, literally. And it was just like, so then they were sharecroppers, and yeah, it was a whole thing. So by then, I'm trying to think of what year it was. I want to say it was early. It was early in the 1900s. They started building new suburbs, what are now called suburbs. And in that, in the contract, the lender who was giving them the money to build the suburbs stated that no African American could live there, and the white people who moved in cannot sell to African Americans. So then we have a lot of black people who are living in hoods and ghettos and rundown areas, very, very depressed areas. And when they say, okay, we saved enough money, we're able to move out. Okay, we got to move out of this neighborhood. Let's go to the suburbs. Well, the bank isn't going to approve a loan for them to go to the suburbs. They can be suburb adjacent, but they can only live where, because it's green, red, and yellow. Those are the types of neighborhoods. And if you live in a red neighborhood, you can only move to another red neighborhood. You might, for a higher fee, be able to get into a yellow neighborhood, but you can't go to a green neighborhood because it's mostly white, low crime, not really a police presence there because they're white. Like, what are you gonna do? So that's kind of like how the housing is. And it's the same with cars, credit cards, anything you really need credit for, because the country was essentially built on credit. So
When
that's
was
kind of how
this?
it is.
The 1910s.
Um.
Because like it was like the 1820s versus like 1950s.
Well,
Like,
okay. So up until 1968, because 1968, I want to say 1968 or 1868 was the Civil War, and that's in it was 1865 when 1865 the proclamation, the Emancipation Proclamation, and then 1868 is when the last people found out in June, and that's why we celebrate Juneteenth um, in Texas, that there were no more, like, that enslaved people were now free. Like, slave masters had to let their enslaved people go. And so up until then, black people couldn't really own anything in the South. And in the North, it was very covert racism, because even after slavery was essentially over, they still had things like jail and prison where you can have free labor, because in the Constitution it says in the 13th Amendment that no person should be a slave unless they are in prison.
oh, that's weird.
And that, yeah, and so it's like you can work for you have citizenship. You will not be a slave to another person unless you are imprisoned. And that's why we have privatized prisons. Our prisons are not necessarily public. We have a lot of private prisons that benefit, like JCPenney. There are some other stores too that benefit off of the labor of the prisoners, who make like 50 cents a day or something like that. It's something wild. It's like $1 or $2 a day. But even the yeah, but
definitely be more of a like a rehab situation. You go in trying to get something out of it, than just like being there. It's really something weird.
so here's the thing though, right? When your prison system isn't set up that way from the get-go, you're not going to have that. So police officers started as slave catchers. They would be a part of the hunting party to go catch people who ran away from their slave master's home. That's how the police started. Now
So there
there's
was no
this
police beforehand.
no, that's what it was. Like, in because if you okay, so when America first started, um, they brought in enslaved peoples in 1619, right? So they were bringing in enslaved people from Africa to mine to work the field, till the land, all that kind of stuff, right? And then they had revolts that happened. So they had to get people to make sure that their property, the enslaved people, were brought back to service them as needed, right? So they had slave catchers. The slave catchers, then that the title went away, but their job essentially stayed the same. So at the turn of the century in the 1900s, when there were not necessarily any slave catchers that were needed, we had the police departments that were supposed to protect white people from, the black hooligans or whatever, right? We also had other black people who joined the forces in hopes of protecting their communities. But if you look at slave catchers in the 1800s versus the police officers now, especially in more heavily populated areas with more black people, they are, and they'll talk about it very nonchalantly. They don't care about us. They come from like they had in LA when they had a black problem, they brought a bunch of police officers from Alabama to LA to hunt down black people. And just as recently as last year or a few months ago, in North Carolina, there were police officers who were caught on tape talking about, "Oh, we're going to hunt down N-words." And it's just like that's a part of the systems that have been put in place that really keep us from achieving success. And so we may have one or two. We'll have people like Dave Chappelle, Eddie Murphy.
Kings, absolute kings. The bare.
Yeah, yeah. You
Chris Rock.
know,
I
we'll
love
have
Chris Rock.
people
I love
who
those
come
lads.
from
I
who
love
come
Chris Rock's
from
fucking legend.
yeah, literal nothing and be successful, right? And they'll say, "Oh, well, those two people were successful. Why aren't you successful?" Well, that's the whole facade that you put up is that one or two people can make it, but not everybody can make it. You can look everywhere and see a successful white person, but that's not the same in a black community. You know,
But
we're
in
starting to
all
see.
fairness, like we're not all like sunshine and rainbows.
Oh
As we
no, no,
grow.
no, that's not what I'm saying. But it's just, and it's not even that your life is necessarily better. It's just that the access to resources that you have are greater than what our access is. Does that make sense? It's not. There's no. I have no. What's the word? I'm not looking at you in envy. I don't envy the lot in life that you have. I don't wish to be you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just that the access to resources, housing, jobs, education, you know, family, all those things are not the same. And since those things are not the same, I'm wondering how we can make it a more even playground. But I don't envy white people to want to be like them.
Mm.
I appreciate having their perspective.
Okay.
Yeah.
But like, if I said, "How you getting on, Leah? I have the magic box here, and you're gonna fix the world," how would you go about it? Like genuinely from like your experience in the States, like if I said, "Okay, you have the power to fix these issues,"
Mm.
where do we start? Like, how would you go about it? Like, do you think there needs to be more diversity in these workplaces, like in banks or in police
It,
departments?
you know what's crazy? Even if there was more diversity, it doesn't change people's minds, people's hearts.
Change it to a degree. Like, like a black officer, I hope isn't going to be like those Alabama guys.
You would be
Hoping to
surprised
God
how
he's not.
many. Whew, there are a lot of self-hating black people.
Well, that's a bit. That's more
There's
of a personal sad thing.
yeah, that's
Like,
that's the
that's
sad
bad.
part.
That is pretty bad.
I think that if
So people
that's a
dislike
tough.
themselves for being black. Is that what
Yeah, and it comes out in ways of like, well, I have to have a mixed baby, or I only date white girls, or I only date white guys, or I'm only in this area, or I only do these things, and it's a weird thing to come across, and it's very sad. But I think that in that box would have to be something that would change the hearts and minds of people, because one thing that I've noticed is that racism, prejudiceness, that it can't stand against contact. So if a person, was a Trump supporter, another person was a Biden supporter, once they have conversation and break bread, essentially, they realize at the end of the day, there's two people who see the different sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
They feel like this is the best way to achieve happiness, success, and protection for our families, as opposed to this way to achieve the same goal. But people who are, we're still, and I don't know if you all are going to see or have seen Judas and the Black Messiah with Deo Kaluuya and Lakeith Stanfield, but that's just like a small part that just actually came out on HBO Max last week before, something like that. But that just is a small piece that just shows how we try to move forward and do our own thing, but there are people in power who will always see us as a threat. Like me just being alive is a threat to somebody else's existence. And so that's why we're treated as such. And so I could say, yes, we need to have more diversity, but I think there just needs to be acknowledgement from all parties that we're human.
I think politics feeds into it too, because funny you bring up the Trump thing. Like there were black Trump supporters, there was Latino
Absolutely,
Trump
yes.
supporters, but this weird thing that's come about is they're racists, or the Biden thing is they're communists. It's just weird how we attach these things to political opinion, and like you can have like the most like racially discriminating guy on the planet. He could be a Trump supporter for all we know.
Yeah.
If he's out there, or she, but like straight away that thing is there. I wonder, does politics feed into it a fair bit?
Especially in these last couple of years, absolutely.
I know in Ireland we like I'm a business student. We have laws against the discrimination on like several different grounds. I guess age, sexuality, member of the traveling community, pregnant, blah blah blah. There's a bunch of them. There's 7 of them, and religion, race, whatever. But is there something not like that in the States? Like, because I know recently, like there was this thing about like you can't discriminate against, I think, trans people or LGBTQ people.
Yeah. So the
like, do you guys not have like protection like that in the workplace, or is it just more of a cultural thing?
It's finicky the way they want to apply it. So there are certain protections like there. So we had the affirmative action plan, which looked at people who were not white but who still had the qualifications to make it into school, business, whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. And that's like their diversification. The other thing was okay, cool. The other thing was the Civil Rights Act, I believe it was, that where we didn't have discrimination, but even in today, because people are discriminated, like I said, against the hair or
which is really weird.
It's a weird thing, but wearing an afro or wearing locks or having
if you can pull off an afro, do it. It is so cool to see.
I'm glad you think like that, but there are some people who say you need to straighten it. You need to you need to pull it back or not wear it so big or whatever the case may be. There were
happy people. Like they're probably conscious of their own thing.
I want to say it was as recent. I know it was in the last 3 years, at least in the last 3 years, that we've had people. I think that she lost the suit. Actually, we do have the Civil Rights Act, but there are still issues where in the last 3 years we had cases where a woman had brought the corporation to court to sue them because they discriminated against her because of her locks. So
can you do that in the States? Like, can you like tell employees like hide tattoos, keep your hair a certain way? Because I know in our schools they can do, like lads.
Couldn't have no facial piercings. So I couldn't wear this in certain places, like if I wanted to get hired. So that's no nice. Facial piercings. Thank you. No visible tattoos. Your hair cannot be. How did they word it? Your hair cannot be an unnatural color.
That's fair. Well, I guess it's at the employer's discretion. Like you do kind of pick who's in your place.
Mm-hmm.
Like Thomas is fired the second his hair goes green, but the second it turns blue, he gets a promotion.
That's
Sorry,
I'm not getting paid.
It's kind of
promotion sounds great. I said I'm not getting paid, so promotion.
You're not getting paid. Yeah.
But yeah, so culture here is quite weird. It's very very different, I think. But I do love learning about other people's cultures. I've been trying to for the last like 2.5 years, and then the pandemic happened. Visit Ireland because I really want to go.
Give us a shout when you end up here.
Yeah, I don't know how big is Ireland actually.
Tiny.
Tiny.
Smaller than New York State.
Seriously?
That's not a joke. That's serious. It's like the size of like Hawaii and New Jersey combined, I think. Yeah, and Hawaii is tiny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Like we're a little speck, a little green speck, um, but we're a pretty one. I
Mm.
but like our conversation here has been great. Like when you're bringing up these things about like your experience or I guess the African American experience in the States, you know, I'm a big history buff, so like I think back to like what was our equivalent to blank, like in recent history, like what atrocities have been committed and blah blah blah. Um, and it makes me wonder, like how come like some are forgotten? Like there's so many things that happened to African Americans back in the day. It's forgotten, or even Native Americans, all groups even, and some of them are just forgotten, but some stick around. Like Ireland's never going to forget about the famine.
Yeah.
Slavery's never going to be forgiven. What else? The Spanish Inquisition, probably never going to be forgiven as well. Stuff like that. The genocide of Ukrainians in Ukraine under the Soviet Union. Blah blah blah. Yeah, yeah. We live in a rough world. It's weird, but like
Yeah,
we're
but
podcasters. We got it down.
but I think that one thing that I look forward to is the incremental change that we've seen, and it's the incremental change that stays that helps us to keep like looking for the bright spots, keep moving forward, and keep
Hmm.
impacting people in a positive way. But I appreciate y'all for coming in, having a conversation with me. Please let people know where they can find you.
Thomas. Oh, you can talk. So if you want to find us, you can find us at Awfully Irish under most things. We have Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, obviously YouTube. We're available on all podcasting sites. Yeah, normally we don't talk about things as deep as this, but obviously it's an important conversation. Normally we talk to actors, comedians, scientists, blah blah blah, people with unique experiences normally. So you can check us out there, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Make sure to follow us on Take Up Space Pod at Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Champions of Discourse on YouTube. Thank you so much, guys. Have a great one.